Hillsong Church again continues to be under fire, this time over what shouldn't surprise any of us, but over millions and millions of dollars spent not to enhance the kingdom or in a way that honors the Lord, but in fact, the exact opposite. Yeah, in today's video, we're going to read through this article for a few moments, and I'm going to give you my thoughts as well, because I personally attended one of the most dangerous, charismatic, word of faith, prosperity teaching churches in my early days of faith. But first, let's get into this article real quick. It says this: the Hillsong megachurch was accused of financial misconduct by a member of the Australian Parliament on Thursday, March 9th. Andrew Wilkie, an independent lawmaker, claimed that leaked financial documents show that the church earned 80 million Australian dollars, which is 53 million more than it reported, as well as evidence of fraud and money laundering. So not only are they going through what happened with, of course, Carl Lentz, Brian Houston, Brian Houston's father, just the scandals that came up from students in their college in Australia. Yeah, the list keeps going on, and now we have to tackle and throw on millions of dollars in fraud and laundering. Wilkie said he had proof that senior leadership spent church funds on extravagant purchases such as a resort vacations, luxury watches, and designer clothes. He detailed 5 private jet trips made by co-founder Brian Houston in a 3-month period, costing, private jets aren't cheap, $20,000 and $55,000, and 5-figure business class flights booked by Hillsong head Phil Dooley. Wilkie's also accused Australian tax authorities of being aware of the documents and refusing to act. This is a failure of regulatory oversight every bit as alarming as Hillsong's criminality. Wilkie said in a speech to Parliament as a reporter in The Australian, the MP made the declarations under parliamentary privilege, which allows lawmakers to read confidential documents into the official records without fear of legal actions. Representatives for Hillsong said the church was working on overhauled governance and accountability procedures. So there's a lot happening, and there's more to this, and you can do your research as well to see exactly what more money was spent on. Hearing this news brings just zero surprise. And when we hear that they are doing this, when they're abusing the money, when they are abusing tithes, offerings coming in and using it for their own pleasure and their own luxuries, sadly, that happens in more megachurches than people probably want to hear. I mean, for me personally, guys, I attended a megachurch. I attended a health, wealth, prosperity church. Jesse Duplantis, Kenneth Hagin. Guys, these men, when they were alive, which Kenneth Hagin has passed away, Jesse Duplantis is still alive, but when Kenneth Hagin was alive, preached at this church so many times, raised up the current pastor's dad in this whole walk and in this whole teaching, and also raised up the current pastor as well. Like, guys, there's so much back history with how Kenneth Hagin invested in this church. And then Jesse Duplantis preaches at this church, and a list of other health, wealth, prosperity teachers that people know of preach at this church that I attended. And this church pumped in millions. They paid their staff horrifically. I only know that because my wife worked for the church at the time. And they paid their guest pastors and their guest worship leaders plenty of money to have them real excited to come and preach and lead worship for God at this church anytime. And so millions of dollars were pumped into this church. The giving of this church was non-existent because it only gave to those exact health, wealth, prosperity teachers in Las Vegas and other parts of Texas and other parts of Louisiana and all these different states who were all on board. All the money was just going in a giant circle. And it still does to this day. And it's shameful. And they don't use it for the Lord. They use it for their private gain with private jets and lavish vacations. And that's what they do. And they treat their employees terrible. Now, for those who are outside, who have never attended a charismatic church, prosperity church, yeah, this may come as a surprise reading this, but it sadly happens often. And we need to be aware of it. We need to understand where our money is going. You need to ask your church those questions. They need to show you proof as well. There's nothing wrong doing that. But for us to sit here and read this about Hillsong, we should be righteously outraged of this news, disgusted with this news. We should be seeking, how can we, in this generation, in this time, make a difference to stop this type of horrific abuse on people who are giving their last dime because they're believing some phony preacher who's on television or who's on the pulpit in person. Give to our church and God's going to bless you abundantly with more money. It's a crime. And it leads people starving and hungry. It leads people to walk away from the faith. It leads people broken and lost. It leads people doubting the Lord. It leads people to a dark place. And if your faith isn't grounded and rooted strongly in the Lord, you can find yourself being one of the many, sadly, who say, yeah, I was once a Christian, but then this happened. I got hurt by the church. And no, it's not okay to sit on that and to hold on to that as I've been church hurt, so that therefore this gives me the right on how I'm supposed to feel. But instead, we are hurt by the church. We find a church that's serving the kingdom right, and then we use our story to help others who are going down the same direction as we once were.